Okay, so instead of doing stipple, we're going to use the same colors, but we're going to try the hatching method. So this is something we can use for the hair in our image. And so what we're going to go ahead and do is we'll do the scale first. I'm going to do it in this one with the stipple area first because you can see I've practiced over here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just lightly put in some values. So I'm going to use the white to make the yellow just get a little bit lighter. Then I'm going to add the yellow over, then the other golden yellow or the chrome yellow. Then I'll start mixing in the analogous colors. So these are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Sorry. All right, and so we're going to always overlap them just a little bit. If at any time you need to pause this video, go ahead and do that so you can get caught up. All right, so we're just kind of putting in a nice little base here that we can then put our lines on top of. So we're going to take this all the way to the red. Now if I need to go any darker, so like let's say I got really dark hair, I could always pull out a little bit of the black and use that too. But let's just go ahead and stop at the red so we get a nice range of value, but also we get a nice color. Okay, so once I have that done, now I can go ahead and start putting in my lines. So for your hair, you're going to follow the direction of your hair. So here I'm just going to go ahead and use vertical lines and then start dissipating and using less of them. And then I'll use a few of this light yellow, right? And then the chrome yellow. So this time I'm picking up and I'm letting the texture kind of show as I go across, always going just a little bit darker, right, so that the lines stand out as I go. So what I kind of always do is kind of go back in and just make sure that I got a nice range of value, but also I want to make sure that I can see the lines, because that's the individual hairs that we're doing here. Also, I want to kind of cover up that gray paper showing. You're going to see I'm using kind of a light one all the way down here. Usually you don't see too much texture in the dark areas. Okay, so there you can see it's going to look like maybe some of those individual hairs. So now on the sphere, let's go ahead and do the same thing. Just kind of start with the base values. Using my reference here for the sphere. You'll use your photo as your reference for how light and how dark to make these colors. Maybe I'll take a little bit of this in my reflected light. I got some red here in my shadow. And so in order to blend that in, I can use my vermilion. I can use my orange for like a gradual transition. Okay, so it's kind of rough to begin with, right? And so let's see if I can smooth this out just a little bit. Like I'm not going to build up too heavy. That's what a mistake I made here, is I went in too thick, so that it was really difficult for me to go back in and add the texture. So I went in with the white. I'm just going to go in a little bit with the lemon yellow, chrome, just repeating the same process with nice and light pressure, just trying to cover up a little bit more of that gray paper. Kind of smear some of these colors and values together. Okay, so in order to show now the texture of the hair, on the sphere, I kind of start with like a snowflake or kind of like a star shape. You can can see that pretty well. And then on my photo, I would look at which direction the hairs are kind of bending across my head. So here I'm kind of having them dissipate, use fewer of them, kind of go across here, kind of follow the contours of it, right? So I did that with the white, and I can do that here with some of the yellows as well, kind of like pressing it in between. If I put them directly on top, it's going to kind of soften those details. So if you want to soften, you can overlap. But if you want them to stand out a little bit more, make sure you just put them kind of side by side, or go for a darker color, right? So if I want to see the lines a little bit more, I can go with a slightly darker color. Right, you can see how you start to see those lines a little bit more. So I'm bending these to follow the direction of the circle. Here I'm using kind of short lines for the shadow. Now when I go to the darker color, you'll be able to see it a little bit more. So I'm going to use really short lines. They're kind of coming to a point down here at the end. And for reflected light, I'll just use a few little lines, really short kind of ones, kind of coming up. Just trying really hard to kind of stay in the lines. So I'm going to look in the darkest part of my shadow and add some little lines, almost like dots. I use fewer of them as it gets lighter. Right? And so I can kind of keep working this until I'm happy with my transitions. But you can see how the texture of this will look a little bit different than like the smoothness of your skin. And it will look a little bit more like hair.